Golgotha's shadow. The air in the praetorium, the governor's headquarters, was thick not just with the dust of Jerusalem, but with cruel, nervous energy. Jesus, already scourged and weary beyond measure, stood silently as a Roman cohort, a rough band of soldiers, gathered around him. This was their sport now, a brutal diversion before the grim task ahead. They saw a king, or rather, the claim of one, and decided to play their part in a twisted coronation. They snatched the soldier's worn, purple cloak and draped it over his bleeding shoulders, a mockery of royal attire. Then one of them, skilled perhaps from idle hours in the field, wove together thorny branches into a crude crown, pressing it down onto his brow. Drops of blood trickled down his face. Mingling with the spit, they hurled at him. "Hail, King of the Jews!" they jeered, falling to their knees in false homage, their laughter echoing off the stone walls. They took a reed, perhaps intended as a mock scepter, and struck him on the head with it, driving the thorns deeper. Their game complete, they tore the purple cloak off, reopening wounds, and put his own simple clothes back on him. Then they led him out, pushing him toward the place of execution. The narrow streets were crowded, the weight of the crossbeam rough-hewn and heavy, pressed down on his already torn flesh. He stumbled. The soldiers, impatient, scanned the crowd. Their eyes fell on a man coming in from the country, a foreigner named Simon, from Cyrene in North Africa. Perhaps his face showed pity. Perhaps he just looked strong. But they seized him. "Carry this man's cross," they commanded. And so Simon, father of Alexander and Rufus, men known later to believers, unwillingly shouldered the instrument of torture, walking behind a condemned king. They reached the place. Its name in Aramaic sent a shiver down the spine. Golgotha, the place of the skull, a ghastly, barren hill outside the city walls, reserved for the dying. Here, they offered Jesus wine mixed with myrrh, a common anesthetic to dull the senses before the agony. He refused it. He would face this cup this hour, with a clear mind and spirit. It was the third hour, about 9 a.m, when they crucified him. The sickening thud of hammer against nail echoed under the Judean sun. They hoisted the cross, dropping its base into a prepared hole in the rock. And there he hung, suspended between heaven and earth. Below him, the soldiers, callously indifferent to man dying above, gathered his clothes. For the seamless tunic, they cast lots, gambling to see who would win the final earthly possession of the Son of Man. Above his head, Pilate's inscription, meant as a final insult, declared an unintended truth in stark letters: "The King of the Jews." On either side of him, they crucified 2 robbers, hardened criminals, placing Jesus quite literally in the midst of sinners. The spectacle drew mockers. People passing by shook their heads, hurling insults. "Aha! You would destroy the temple and build it in 3 days. They shouted up at him, twisting his words. "Come down from the cross and save yourself." The chief priests and the teachers of the law stood nearby, conferring amongst themselves, their voices dripping with scorn. "He saved others," they sneered, "but he can't save himself. Let this Christ, this King of Israel, come down now from the cross, that we may see and believe." Even the criminals crucified alongside him joined in the abuse, casting insults his way. Then at the 6th hour, high noon, a profound change occurred. The sun, which should have been at its brightest, seemed to vanish. A deep, unnatural darkness fell over the entire land. It was a chilling, suffocating gloom that lasted for 3 agonizing hours, a visible sign of creation itself groaning under the weight of this moment. At the 9th hour, around 3 p.m, from out of the oppressive darkness, Jesus cried out with a loud voice, his words tearing to the eerie silence in his native Aramaic. "Eloi, Eloi, lema sabachthani?" which means, my God, why have you forsaken me?" Some standing nearby misunderstood his cry. "Listen, he's calling Elijah," they muttered. One man quickly ran, soaked a sponge in sour wine, a cheap drink common among soldiers, put on a reed, and lifted it to Jesus' lips. "Leave him alone now," he said, perhaps with a shred of curiosity or mocking delay. "Let's see if Elijah comes to take him down." With one final, loud cry, a cry not of defeat but perhaps a completion of spirit released, Jesus breathed his last. In that very instant, inside the sacred temple, the massive, thick curtain separating the holy place from the most holy place, the symbolic barrier between God and humanity, was torn in two, from the top all the way down to the bottom. Access was opened. Standing opposite the cross, the Roman centurion, a man accustomed to death and violence, had watched everything. He saw how Jesus endured the mockery, how he died, the darkness, the cry. Awe and conviction struck this hardened soldier. He looked up at the figure on the central cross and declared, his voice filled with stunned reverence, "Truly, this man was the Son of God." Watching from a distance, their hearts breaking, were several women who had followed Jesus from Galilee and cared for his needs. Among them were Mary Magdalene, Mary the mother of James the younger and of Joses, and Salome. They, along with many other women who had come up with him to Jerusalem, remained faithful witnesses, even in the face of utter desolation, their gaze fixed on the king hanging lifeless on a Roman cross, the king who had just changed everything.